In the depths of the Atlantic Ocean in 1943, a German U-boat commander heard something that turned his blood to ice. The splash of a torpedo hitting the water behind his vessel, followed by a sound he had never heard before. A high-pitched ping that seemed to follow his every move. No matter how sharply he turned, no matter how desperately he dove, that relentless pinging grew louder and closer. This was not an ordinary torpedo. This was FIDO, the first acoustic homing torpedo, and it was about to change naval warfare forever. The story of acoustic torpedoes begins with a simple but terrifying problem. During the early years of World War II, submarine warfare was a deadly game of cat and mouse. German U-boats prowled the Atlantic like wolves, sinking hundreds of Allied merchant ships. American and British destroyers would race to the last known position of a submarine, drop depth charges, and hope for the best. It was wasteful, inefficient, and often futile. A submarine could change course underwater, leaving depth charges exploding harmlessly in empty water. The Allies needed something smarter, something that could hunt on its own. Enter Project FIDO, one of the most closely guarded secrets of the war. Developed at Harvard University's Underwater Sound Laboratory and the General Electric Company, FIDO stood for nothing at all. It was simply a random code name chosen to confuse enemy intelligence. The weapon itself was officially designated the Mark 24 mine, another deliberate misdirection since it was actually a fully functional acoustic homing torpedo. The genius behind FIDO was beautifully simple. German submarines were loud. Their engines, propellers, and pumps created a distinctive acoustic signature that could be heard underwater from significant distances. FIDO was equipped with hydrophones, underwater microphones that could detect these sounds. Once dropped from an aircraft near a submarine, the torpedo would activate its acoustic sensors, pick up the loudest sound source, and home in on it like a bloodhound following a scent. The first operational use of FIDO came in May 1943 when an American Catalina flying boat spotted a U-boat in the North Atlantic. The aircraft swooped low and released the secret weapon. The U-boat tried to dive and evade, but FIDO's acoustic guidance system locked onto the submarine's propeller noise. Minutes later, the torpedo found its mark. The U-boat was destroyed, and the crew of the Catalina had no idea how revolutionary their weapon truly was. Security around FIDO was so tight that even the air crews using it were told almost nothing about how it worked. Over the next 2 years, FIDO proved devastatingly effective. It sank 37 German and Japanese submarines, a remarkable kill rate for any weapon system. U-boat commanders began reporting strange torpedo attacks that seemed to follow them through evasive maneuvers. German intelligence struggled to understand what was happening. Some thought the Allies had developed submarines that could fire torpedoes while deeply submerged. Others believed it was a new type of depth charge with extraordinary accuracy. The truth remained hidden until after the war ended. But FIDO had limitations. It was relatively slow, traveling at only 12 knots. Its battery gave it a running time of just 15 minutes. The acoustic sensors were primitive by modern standards, easily confused by other noises or temperature layers in the water. And most critically, it could only be dropped from aircraft, limiting its tactical applications. Despite these constraints, FIDO proved the concept worked. Acoustic homing was the future of anti-submarine warfare. The Cold War brought new urgency to torpedo development. Soviet submarines prowled the depths with nuclear weapons, and the United States Navy needed better tools to hunt them. The Mark 24 FIDO evolved into increasingly sophisticated weapons. The Mark 43 torpedo, introduced in the early 1950s, could be launched from both aircraft and surface ships. It was faster, diving to greater depths, and its acoustic sensors were more sensitive and selective. Then came the Mark 46, a weapon that represented a quantum leap in capability. Entering service in the 1960s, the Mark 46 became the workhorse of American anti-submarine warfare for decades. It was lightweight, compact, and could be launched from helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, surface ships, and even other submarines. Its acoustic system was dramatically improved, using active sonar to ping the target and passive sensors to listen for engine noise. The Mark 46 could pursue targets at speeds exceeding 40 knots and dive to depths where earlier torpedoes would have been crushed by water pressure. The Mark 46 saw extensive combat use during the Cold War, though most engagements remain classified. What is publicly known includes several dramatic incidents. During the Vietnam War, American destroyers used Mark 46 torpedoes against suspected North Vietnamese submarines in the Tonkin Gulf. In the 1980s, Mark 46s were deployed throughout the Mediterranean and Atlantic, as tensions with the Soviet Union reached fever pitch. Navy records confirm multiple training exercises where Mark 46s successfully tracked and would have destroyed target submarines in simulated combat scenarios. But as American torpedoes evolved, so did submarine defenses. Soviet engineers developed acoustic decoys that mimicked the sound of a submarine's propeller, drawing torpedoes away from the real target. They built quieter submarines with sound-dampening technology that made acoustic detection incredibly difficult. Submarine hulls were coated with special tiles that absorbed sonar pings. The hunter was being outsmarted by its prey. The response was the Mark 48, a heavyweight torpedo designed for submarine versus submarine combat and surface ship attacks. The Mark 48 was and remains a monster. Weighing over 3,500 pounds and stretching nearly 20 feet long, it carries a warhead powerful enough to break a warship in half. Its guidance system combines active and passive sonar with a sophisticated computer that can distinguish between a real submarine and a decoy. The Mark 48 can travel at speeds exceeding 55 knots and dive deeper than 800 meters. It has an operational range of over 24 miles. The Mark 48 has seen real combat. During the Falklands War in 1982, a British submarine fired a Mark 48 variant at the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano. The torpedo's warhead detonated beneath the ship's keel, breaking its back and sending it to the bottom. More than 300 Argentine sailors died in that attack, making it one of the most lethal torpedo strikes since World War II. Today's most advanced acoustic torpedo is the Mark 54, which began replacing the Mark 46 in 2004. The Mark 54 represents the cutting edge of underwater warfare technology. Its digital signal processing can pick out a submarine's acoustic signature from the background noise of the ocean with stunning precision. It can operate in shallow coastal waters, where earlier torpedoes would have been confused by echoes bouncing off the seafloor. Its guidance algorithms use artificial intelligence to predict the target's evasive maneuvers and adjust course accordingly. The Mark 54 is designed to counter the ultra-quiet diesel, electric, and nuclear submarines operated by potential adversaries. These modern submarines are so silent that they can be harder to detect than marine life. Some use air-independent propulsion systems that allow them to stay submerged for weeks without making a sound. The Mark 54 compensates with extraordinary sensor sensitivity and processing power, able to detect the faintest acoustic anomaly that might indicate a submarine. Actual engagement data from Mark 54 testing remains highly classified, but Navy documents reveal impressive performance. In controlled exercises, Mark 54s have consistently tracked and hit target submarines in literal environments where water depth, temperature variations, and seafloor geology create extremely challenging conditions. The torpedo has demonstrated the ability to reject sophisticated decoys and reacquire targets after losing initial contact. The evolution from FIDO to the Mark 54 represents an 80-year journey from crude acoustic seekers to weapons with near artificial intelligence. Modern acoustic torpedoes can communicate with their launching platform, sending back targeting data and receiving course corrections. They can be programmed with multiple search patterns and attack profiles before launch. Some variants can even distinguish between different classes of submarines based on their unique acoustic signatures. Looking forward, the next generation of acoustic torpedoes will likely incorporate even more advanced artificial intelligence, swarm coordination allowing multiple torpedoes to hunt cooperatively, and non-acoustic sensors including wake detection and magnetic anomaly detection. The fundamental principle established by FIDO in 1943 remains unchanged. Listen for your enemy, follow the sound, and strike without mercy. From the desperate battles of the Atlantic in World War II, to the silent Cold War patrols beneath the Arctic ice, to the tense standoffs in the South China Sea today, acoustic torpedoes have been the ultimate hunter-killers of the deep. These weapons represent humanity's determination to dominate even the darkest, most hostile environment on Earth, the depths of the ocean where sound travels but light cannot reach, where the hunter and the hunted play an eternal game of life and death in the crushing darkness.